Important health considerations for the following 3 tight ends, Dalton. TJ Hawkinson, Tyler Higbee, Juwan Johnson. Man, Hawkinson, our buddy, Dr. Edwin Porras, was on the show with me yesterday or a couple of days ago, and he was basically like, yeah, TJ Hawkins is not even going to be playing until like October. That makes me pretty nervous. I'm not sure what we need to hear with any of these 3 guys to get super jacked up about them before the season.
Yeah, Hawkinson was just being drafted too high early in summer, coming up a torn ACL and MCL. Surgery date was January 29th. I saw other doctors suggest, it should be 10 months with the multi-ligament surgery for tight end minimum. And that's like week 12. I mean, he won't be 100% all of 2024. There's a chance. So I have not been drafting him even in best ball. And I don't know. I'm probably not going to end up with any Hawkinson at all. And then the Higbee situation, we need to see the Davis Allen Parkinson battle in LA. And then of course, we don't really know at all the timeline for Juwan Johnson. It just sounded, didn't sound great. So these are the situations we need to hopefully become more clear on their health status when this regular season starts.
Yeah, all 3 of these guys are interesting just because I think they impact the overall offense as well. Juwan Johnson, I think he was set up to have a really nice season in Clint Kubiak's offense, and I've said it on the show, wrote about it for the website. I have a bit of a weird fascination with this Saints offense. The tight end position looks very different without Juwan Johnson there, so his health reports are pretty critical to follow. Higbee, yeah, I definitely think there's open opportunity for some of those guys you mentioned, and Hawkinson, and we can use him as a transition to one of our first wide receiver questions. If Hawkinson's not right, and their second receiver, is a little bit of a question. Like I said, I'm going to transition that smoothly because I'm a professional podcast host. If that second receiver position is a little bit of a question, and Jordan Addison, one of your questions here is, what is Jordan Addison's status? Because he was arrested for suspicion of a DUI in Los Angeles recently near the airport. If you read the reports, not great. This is his second vehicular issue in his first 2 years of his career. Not good. So yeah, what is his status? We could be looking at Minnesota as like, yeah, this was a good spot for JJ McCarthy to land. And it is, I think, a good spot, right? Still got Kevin O'Connell, still have a quality offensive line. They have the best receiver on planet Earth. Guy wears number 18, Justin Jefferson. But still, like, we're taking away Hawkinson for most of the year. We're taking away Addison maybe for some time, or at least we got to ask, like, is he locked in at this point? I don't know. I think there are more questions about the Vikings offense maybe than we would have thought at the end of April's draft.
Yeah, Addison would have if he's playing, he'll benefit from Hawkinson's absence. That it's really thin afterward. Brandon Powell, Trent Sherfield. Addison, in my opinion, was getting drafted too high even before this latest incident. I mean, he was highly underwhelming with Jefferson when was on the field last year. Target per route run was just 15%. It was actually only 19.5% with Jefferson off the field. He was a big play merchant, as mentioned in your Ryan Heath pod earlier this summer. I mean, you look at the yards per route run, nice. You look at the first downs per route run, not so good. So he scored 4 more touchdowns than expected based on usage, the downgrade at quarterback. Yeah, Addison, you needed to worry about separately, and now you do. He removed all Viking stuff from social media. The team is reportedly very upset with him and may even suspend him if the league doesn't. So, Yeah, the Addison situation was already, in my opinion, was one to avoid, but maybe his ADP will overcorrect here. But he's definitely a situation to pay attention to. And conversely, Justin Jefferson, all the targets. I mean, no Hawk, and maybe Addison, is not really much of a competition one way or the other. Yeah, Jefferson's just going to see a ton of targets playing indoors. And that's going to be a real battle between Lamb, Hill, Chase, Jefferson, and St. Brown. I mean, really all those guys are just in such good situations because you counter the loss of Cousins with maybe just so many targets for Jefferson.
Yeah, the highest target share for a player last year is 31%. For Tyreek Hill, 30.7% for Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, 30.5%. And obviously Justin Jefferson all the way down there at 25.9% in the games he was active last year. I think he could easily be a 30% target share player this year. And look, it's not going to be the same as being a 30% target share in Kirk Cousins' offense in 2022, like a veteran quarterback versus a rookie quarterback. Totally understand that, but he is definitely a threat to, I think, lead the NFL in target share this year. He was at he still, even the year prior in 2022, when he had 179 targets, he had 26.6% of the team targets, just because, again, Kirk was a guy that's going to spread it around. Jefferson, I think, could lead the NFL in target share this year. Yeah, man, Addison makes me nervous. I mean, it makes me nervous from a dynasty perspective, just from the decision making. And I agree with you. Like, he had a pretty overrated rookie season to me. 12th percentile success rate versus press coverage in reception perception, mostly just successful on these like crossing routes, dig routes, post routes, stuff like that, which he could have still done in his second season, but you got to actually be out there on the field to be doing that. And I think we have some outstanding questions there. So he was definitely on my do not draft list before this. And I don't know, he'd have to fall pretty far to get on my draft list. That's interesting that you've read that he could be suspended by the team. I wouldn't blame them at this point. Like I said, second vehicular issue in back-to-back years that you got to ask questions about decision-making at that point. Unfortunately, that transitions us pretty well to how long will Rashee Rice be suspended? Jordan Addison is not the only second-year receiver with some legal issues. I think obviously we don't know the answer to this. We're not going to know the answer to this, but Rashee Rice, how long he's suspended for is certainly going to be a big question we may or may not get answered in training camp.
Yeah, I have no insight and no guesses here. Definitely a wide range of possibilities with his suspension. Xavier Worthy, fastest player in the league, catching the ball from Mahomes, but apparently, they're easing him back from this hamstring. Mm-hmm. Hollywood Brown is still good when healthy, but can he hold up? I mean, obviously, there are just so many fantasy ramifications here. Kelsey, 34 years old. So, I mean, Worthy could, if Hollywood can't stay healthy again and Rice is suspended long, I mean, when Worthy gets healthy, I mean, his a lot of uncatchable targets in college, and it's kind of might be the rest of the league really upset with themselves. They let him fall to Kansas City, and he could be a monster right away, like we've seen some fantasy rookie receivers recently. Or Rice only gets a few games and he's back earlier and he just keeps eating underneath. So absolutely, with Mahomes and a team that passes at such a high rate as Kansas City, that's a situation that we all need to be monitoring.
I think it's fascinating to consider these Chiefs receivers just because no doubt it's a better group this year. When Rashee Rice is on the field, I think even with or without him, it's a better group than it was last year. And Rashee Rice is interesting just because he definitely looks really good from a yards per route run perspective, first downs per route run, very efficient player last year. He's just a hyper specific player. His early season, early career data, Dalton, looks a lot like Juju Smith-Schuster. It looks a lot like Jarvis Landry. Like, how excited does that get you as an individual player?
Very manufactured, and it's because out of need. And Kelsey was hurt last year. You're right. They have more options now. And you watching him were never impressed. I was trying to, pump him up this year, being top 10 before the additions and obviously the suspension. But I backed off. And you're right. I think a lot of the numbers in the yards per route run last year might be a little bit overrated with him as a player.
Yeah, it's not that I would say I wasn't impressed. But I don't think that it's a little similar to like Christian Watson, honestly, when he came out of his rookie season in very, very different ways. Like, they're not similar players, but it's just that I think efficiency stats were a little boosted by kind of a hyper specific and some design touches. Rashee Rice in his reception perception sample, Dalton, ran a slant route on 38.3% of his charted routes, which is the highest for any receiver I've charted since 2014.
Wow.
Which is just pretty wild. I just have some questions about whether he's a guy that is going to be a full field. You throw this guy the ball 120 times every year in a good offense. And like Reed and Mahomes have even talked about, like, they weren't happy with their offensive performance. They don't care if they won the Super Bowl. Like, they're not doing what they did on offense again this year. And I think that comes down to, like, we don't want to, it's good that Rashee Rice can do this stuff. I don't think they want to be throwing him the ball like 8 times per game on these crossing routes. Hopefully he can develop and do more than that. I wouldn't say that he's been focused on developing this offseason necessarily. There's been a lot else going on. And I just am interested to see, like, are Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy, are they pure vertical options, or are they going to be more manufactured stuff? Just a lot of outstanding questions with this whole receiver room. But yeah, a lot of it comes down to, what is Rashee Rice's status, and will there be a suspension, and when will we learn about that suspension? Because that will unlock the ADP of the other guys.
Yeah, no doubt. Draft Pacheco and void the wide receiver headache. But no, that's absolutely probably the number one maybe situation to monitor.
All right.